was a quiet walk home from the library, the kind of silence that settles deep into your bones and leaves you feeling as though the world is curled up, asleep and dreaming. The city lights blinked softly in the distance, but here, along this sleepy stretch of asphalt, there were no cars, no people, just the steady rhythm of my own footsteps echoing off shuttered storefronts and cold concrete. The air was crisp, carrying the faintest suggestion of rain, and every so often, the wind rustled through the leaves above, making the shadows dance. I kept my gaze forward, hands stuffed into my pockets, content in the hush that comes when the world seems to pause just for you. It was on this familiar path, beneath the flickering halo of a lamppost, that something unusual caught my eye. A rectangle of laminated paper, zip-tied tight around the metal pole. It fluttered slightly in the breeze, drawing my attention in a way that felt both casual and urgent. I paused, curiosity prickling at the edges of my mind, and glanced at the message printed in bold black letters. Rule: if you walk alone and hear a second pair of steps, do not turn around. For a moment, I just stared, waiting for some punchline or clue to reveal itself. But there was nothing else. No logo, no explanation, just that single, cryptic command. My first thought was that it had to be some sort of art project, a piece of urban storytelling meant to evoke a shiver or spark a conversation. Maybe a prank, I reasoned, left by someone with a taste for the eerie. I let out a small laugh, the sound oddly loud in the empty street, and moved on, telling myself it was just another quirk of city life. Still, the words lodged themselves in my mind, unsettling in their simplicity. That night, as I retraced my steps home, the world felt a little different. I walked past the lamppost again, eyes flicking toward the sign, though I didn't pause this time. The silence is pressed in, thicker now, and I found myself listening more closely to the rhythm of my own feet. 1, 2, 1, 2, steady and familiar. But then, so faint I almost missed it. There was another sound, a second pair of footsteps just out of sync with mine, quickening when I quickened, pausing when I paused. The hair rose on the back of my neck. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. My heart hammered against my ribs, a rapid staccato that drowned out everything else. I remembered the rule, the strange warning, and for a moment I hesitated. Curiosity, though, is a stubborn thing. I turned, half expecting to see a friend pulling a prank, or maybe nothing at all. But the street behind me was empty, washed in the pale glow of street lights, and the only footprints were my own. I let out a tense breath, trying to shake the chill that had settled over me, but now something was different. The street felt colder, the shadows clinging stubbornly to the edges of every building, every alleyway. The air seemed heavier, as though the night itself was watching, waiting. I hurried home, locking the door behind me with trembling hands, and tried to laugh it off. But sleep came slowly, haunted by the memory of footsteps that were never really there. The next night, I found myself glancing over my shoulder before leaving the library, the rule still echoing in my mind. I told myself it was silly, the product of an overactive imagination. But as I walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The city seemed emptier than before, as if it was holding its breath. Again, I heard it, that soft, deliberate echo of my own steps, following just behind, always just out of sight. This time, I didn't turn. I focused on the street ahead, counting my breaths, willing myself not to look back, but the feeling lingered, a persistent wrongness that clung to me like a second skin. The world felt off-kilter, the familiar landmarks warped by shadow and silence. The streetlights flickered, and the darkness seemed deeper, more oppressive. I walked faster, my footsteps growing frantic, but the echo kept pace, never faltering. By the third night, I was exhausted, nerves frayed, sleep elusive, the rule carved into my thoughts like a warning bell. I left the library early, hoping the earlier hour would banish whatever strange presence haunted my nightly walk. The streets were busier at first, but as I turned onto my usual route, the world quieted again, empty save for my own hurried steps. As I passed a closed store, I caught sight of myself in the window, a fleeting, distorted reflection in the glass. I almost kept walking, but something made me slow, eyes drawn to the image moving parallel to me. At first, it looked normal, just a tired version of myself, hunched against the cold. But then, as I sped up, my reflection lagged behind, its movements out of sync with my own. I stopped abruptly, heart pounding, and watched as the reflection paused half a beat later, still moving even as I stood still. A chill ran through me, icy and absolute. I forced myself to keep walking, refusing to look back, though every instinct screamed at me to run. The footsteps behind me grew louder, more insistent, matching my pace with unnatural precision. And then, just as I passed another pool of light, I heard it, a whisper, so close it brushed the back of my neck, almost made it home. The words were soft, barely audible, but they froze me in place. I risked a glance at the ground, at the pool of light cast by the street lamp. My shadow stretched long and thin, but then, impossibly, it split, dividing into two distinct shapes, each moving with a will of its own. The silence pressed in, thicker than ever, and I realized with a cold certainty that I was no longer alone. Whatever I had ignored, whatever I had dismissed as a prank or a trick of the mind, was here with me now, walking in step, sharing my shadow, and as the darkness swallowed the street behind me, I understood. The rule was never meant to be broken, to be continued. At first, the footsteps seemed to belong to someone, or something, outside, distant, muffled, perhaps just the echo of city life seeping into the quiet confines of his apartment. But as the day slipped by, the sounds grew bolder. Now, they came from within. At night, when the streetlights painted thin bars of gold across his floor, he would hear them. The creak of a floorboard in the hallway, the faint shuffle against the kitchen tiles, the almost imperceptible sigh of movement just beyond his bedroom wall. He had checked every lock, every window, convinced himself that his home was secure. But the sounds persisted, threading through the silence, filling the darkness with a restless, prowling presence. He tried to rationalize. Old plumbing, settling beams, perhaps a mouse. But the cadence was unmistakable. Footsteps pacing, stopping, sometimes pausing right outside his closed door. He pressed his ear to the wall one sleepless night, heart pounding, breath held, and felt it. A vibration, a slow, deliberate scrape, as if something moved between the walls themselves. He recoiled, skin prickling, unable to shake the feeling that the apartment, once his sanctuary, was no longer his alone. Each night became a trial, a battle against fear and exhaustion. He would lie rigid beneath his blankets, eyes wide, counting the seconds between each sound. Sometimes he could swear he heard breathing, a low, hushed exhale that matched the rhythm of his own. The days blurred together, marked by a growing sense of dread, an anticipation that something was coming, inching ever closer with every passing hour. It was on a night thick with fog that he met her. He was hurrying home, jacket pulled tight against the chill, when an old woman stepped from the shadows and blocked his path. Her eyes were sharp and dark, her face carved with lines that seemed to tell stories of sleepless nights and whispered secrets. She leaned in, her voice barely more than a hiss, words slipping between her cracked lips like smoke. "You broke the rule," she whispered. "That's how it finds you, and how it becomes you." He stared at her, confusion and fear swirling inside him, but she pressed on, her words urgent, desperate. "You must retrace your steps, reverse the walk. Do not look back, not once. Only then will you have a chance." Before he could respond, she melted into the mist, leaving him alone beneath the flickering street lamp, her warning echoing in his mind. The rule, the walk. What had he done? He replayed his memories, searching for a misstep, some forgotten ritual. The footsteps, the sense of being watched. Had it all begun the night he'd taken that shortcut, the midnight stroll that led him down unfamiliar streets? With no answers and nowhere left to turn, he resolved to follow her instructions. The next night, as the city slept and the moon hung low, he began. Step by step, he traced his original path in perfect reverse, recalling every corner, every crack in the pavement. The air was thick with anticipation. The streetlights seemed to flicker in time with his heartbeat. As he walked, he felt it. A weight, a shadow, pressing close behind. It brushed against his back, silent but insistent. A cold presence that threatened to swallow him whole. Every instinct screamed at him to look, to confirm his fear, but he clung to the rule. Eyes forward, never look back. Each footstep became an act of will, a silent plea for daylight, for safety, for release. At last, he reached the lamppost where it had all begun. There, taped to the pole, fluttered a fresh note. His hands trembled as he tore it free, the paper damp with dew. The message was short, the handwriting unfamiliar. "It's behind you now. You followed the rule. That's how it enters." His breath caught in his throat. The rule wasn't protection, it was an invitation. He felt the truth settle over him like a shroud. The ritual hadn't led him away from the thing in the shadows. It had led it straight to him. A strange sensation crept over him then. A heaviness. A slow, foreign pulse beneath his skin. His thoughts grew sluggish, his memories blurring at the edges. He tried to speak, to call out, but the words twisted in his mouth, his voice no longer his own. It was as if something else was moving inside him, reshaping him from within, rewriting the boundaries of self and shadow. His reflection in a darkened window seemed wrong, distorted, unfamiliar, as if a stranger wore his face. When he spoke, his voice echoed back, deeper, warped, the cadence subtly off. "It's not me walking anymore." Time lost meaning. He caught glimpses of himself in flashes, mirrors, puddles, the polished glass of shop fronts. And each time, he saw two versions, one moving forward, one slipping away. He tried to remember who he was before, what he had feared, but the details faded, replaced by a cold certainty. The footsteps in the night, the movement in the walls, they were his now, woven into his bones, part of the rhythm of his new existence. Somewhere, security footage rolls. A grainy image splits the screen. Two figures, both wearing his clothed both with his face, walking in opposite directions under the indifferent gaze of streetlights. One strides purposefully away, the other lingers, glancing over his shoulder, eyes hollow with regret. They cross paths, neither acknowledging the other, bound by the silent, unbreakable rule, and so it continues. The footsteps echo down empty hallways. The shadow waits, patient, hungry. The rule is passed on, whispered from stranger to stranger, a warning disguised as hope. You follow the rule, now you're next. Somewhere, a new note flutters in the breeze. A fresh set of footsteps begins to echo, and the cycle turns again. The darkness waits, and the invitation is open. All it takes is a single misstep, a single glance back, and the shadow finds its new home. You followed the rule, now you're next.